So we're kind of okay. Grim. We're going grim background today. Way too much to get through. Way too many polls. I could not possibly have done this outside. Plus, it's Friday. It's not Friday. It's fall, so it's super windy, and it would have been a mess, with the microphone and everything. So, um, I'm still using the AirPods for the mic because I had to order one. I need it anyway, but I had to order it. So, looks okay. Everything sounds and looks good. Yeah, sweet. I mean, it's a little washed out. I switched it to 24K, but I don't think it does anything. I switched the camera to that, and I don't think it sent out a notice to everybody again. I can't find a setting for it on the mobile app, but whatever. So IDM, it's Saturday, dog. It is. IDM is just brutal. I mean, in the same way that goth has all of these generational concerns and regional concerns, like, oh, this, that, there's nothing worse than electronic music for the botany of genre narcissism. Like, everybody wants to stake their claim. X came from here. And I seriously, like, I can't. It would take forever to go through all this crap. Yeah, I didn't get the hat yet, but it's you know an important demarcation point, right? Like, in terms of how IDM conceptually comes together is obviously acid house. So acid house is sort of like the punk rock of electronic music in a way. In the broad strokes, you come out of disco, you get high energy, right? And high energy gets celebrated by different audiences than had previously been, big time, dance club, disco stuff. High energy gets a big boost from the gay community, but it becomes also kind of a fixture in evolving the house a little bit. So it's Chicago, it's house, and then it's techno. And it's all the big names. It's Carl Craig, and well, he comes second generation, but it's Juan Atkins, as like a child of Chicago house in a way, and Derek May, and you get Jack in Your Body and the whole Jack craze, which again is like a way of house sort of branding itself, right? But that gets picked up on in England and starts charting. Fingers Inc. and Frankie Knuckles and shit are charting in England. It's really weird because back home it's like, what? And then they send a reporter over there in like '88 to do this big expose, the same way they did with grunge and excuse me, Ever True. And so the whole thing is like, it's evolving out of dance, and it's kind of normal. But when acid house happens, this is the Freaky Dancing Zine compilation for coming out of the hacienda. The hacienda has been, broke, doing nothing forever, losing money every year, every night, and but playing great stuff. And Pickering and Graham and all these people, they're just legendary DJs. And that's all kind of really well documented and isolated. Um, it doesn't, the whole fragmentation, the explosion of this is, like I said, if acid house is kind of like a punk rock for dance music, then the like if you think of D Mob, we call it SE. Like, when acid blows up and becomes this mainstream sort of phrase to describe this new music and this new attitude, and this it becomes drug positive. It's sort of not initially. Like, Future does acid tracks in '87. This is in America. Um and and the sort of like Second Summer of Love thing with the hacienda is like very, very late '87, and then big time in '88. And by '89 is when Freaky Dancing is getting published to hand out in line at acid house nights. But you've got Shoom and Trip too. It's not just the hacienda at all. There's even another. There's What's the other club? Astoria. there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with that. And yes, Ibiza is like kind of like this place where everybody goes and comes back. Yeah, right. There's no 303, and we call it acid, right? That is funny. The famous knob twiddling, utility that is twinned definitively with acid house. But so IDM, because you got to get past this, right? Because IDM starts with a fracture, which is electronic music has been really culturally underground. It's been twinned with rave as a social phenomenon growing in England. And so there's decisions that need to get made there. There's decisions about what you're willing to do, meaning how do you want to control your career? Because one of the big themes with electronic music and this whole, like I said, genre narcissism is everybody wants to start their own label, call it their own genre, and it's nothing like anyone else. It's totally individual and unique. I don't have anything to do with anyone else. That's that's Aphex Twin, big time. He has like tried to make himself this like iconoclast his whole life. I mean, and this is true of like all the inscrutable IDM artists, is that they're all fucking liars. It's all bullshit. They're myth makers, and I love it. That's great. That's just fucking awesome. That's what you want. Um, but yeah, that's not going to be the thumbnail. I'm going to edit it after and make it more like the Chartsweep ones. But Aphex comes right out of the gate and starts Reflex with what's his name, Gary? I forget. Oh no, Grant Wilson Cartridge or something. Anyway, he calls it brain dance music, right? And just right at the top, because he starts Reflex like the second he gets signed. So a lot of this is about the artists and the choices they make. The other part of it is all the goddamn record labels. And sort of the big three for IDM at the start is R&S in Belgium, which is actually originally was a Belgian new beat label. So when I was talking about high energy and stuff, in Belgium, you had this scene where like they were playing random weird records from all kinds of different genres. If I think about the way that we all kind of did Night Bus, like I think the inspiration is like getting sick of genreification, getting sick of the pigeonholing and the barriers that get put around you when you sign up for a genre or even an image, right? Because that's huge with the big English label for this, which is Warp. And it's like no shock that Warp comes out of Sheffield. I mean, the Human League, Clock DVA, Cabaret Voltaire, Warp makes complete sense. But they also veer into another problem, which is the omnipresent graphic design, the way that the factory mentality of branding your records so that people know it's a Warp, LFO, Nightmares on Wax, whatever, the purple sleeve that they come across, that branding aspect. So, you have R&S initially, they're stringing along doing new beat stuff and some sort of post high energy, and Jack too, because what happens is in 89 and 90, I forget his name. His last name is so awesome. It's like René Vendel Papier or something. It's just the raddest like Belgian last name ever. But he's been doing this label for like 4 years, but just like saving up money and putting out a record here and there. And he doesn't really blow up until 89, 90 because he gets like Joey Beltram. I think CJ Bolin does a record with him, and he gets a record out by Fingers Inc., who are like historic, Reynot got canceled. Fuck, I don't even want to know anymore. I mean, I just don't like whatever he did is between him and the people. Like, I'm so sick of this fucking shit. Everyone getting fucking tarred and feathered online for everything they do. It's so dumb. I mean, whatever. Anyway, CJ Bolin, yeah, I mean, these are the big three artists that he gets as he pivots to starting R&S to be this big dance label, which obviously blows the fucking lid off with Aphex. But at the same time, right? We're talking about the preciousness and the narcissism. He starts an ambient sub label called Apollo, just the same way that Warp starts talking about the artificial intelligence series, which is not just those two compilations at all. It's a whole design language. So just I mean, there's like 70 fucking CDs and shit next to me. So when he starts this, right, he's got R&S and he's doing like the banging club shit and everything, and it's Polynomial C and Didgeridoo and these just legend fucking such brilliant, like original, iconically fun ideas. Like Aphex is the whole other piece of this too. Is when I get into the choices the artists make as this all blew up, is the fucking compilation. It's not just artificial intelligence. It's Trans Europe Express. It's DJ Kicks. The K7. It's like the compilation is everything, because most of these artists make like 1 or 2 tracks and then they got nothing left in the tank. Aphex Twin put out like fucking 130 tracks between 92 and 94. More, I think, if you count it all. But the Polygon Window thing, again, he's got to make a different identity for Polygon Window. It's going to be this totally different thing, and he's running down the beach in Cornwall somewhere. And it's the Lucida, I think it's Lucida Sans console, the font. Artificial intelligence is defined by like sort of the use of this font. And it's on the Black Dog, the first Black Dog CD. It's on the first B12 CD, which is so bad. Holy shit, that thing fucking blows. But there's my ring light. You can tell I'm a pro YouTuber. So the Black Dog thing here, don't believe he had 500 tracks by the time he was 13. Aphex Twin, like putting 85 to 92 on this fucking comp is the biggest load of bullshit ever. Like, it absolutely 100% did not fucking happen. It's so ridiculous. It's just part of the myth making, and that's fine. I love myth making, and I love bullshitting and making yourself out to be a bigger thing than you are. It's fine. But yeah, so this whole precious artificial intelligence series, it's like, yeah, that first B12 record, whatever it's called, Soma, the bluish one, it's so bad. And then Polygon Window and Black Dog and some other stuff. But the interesting thing about that, to me anyway, is what happens with the Designers Republic coming in. Because if you're on an outlier electronica tip thing like Seafield was, but you're not on a really fucking super hip, well-designed label, this is what your fucking albums look like. Like, this is some grade school fucking bottom shelf graphic design. It's fucking terrible. And Too Pure was like super notorious for just like having a guy who could kind of clock some records and bands and get them signed, but no fucking clue how to manage, packaging and shit. And I mean, look what happens the same year. Like Mark Clifford, Seafield's main guy, he goes and does a side project with Warp called Disjecta. And it's just like all the colliding, fucking font magic shit and, crushed kerning and all that shit, And this is like his really harsh post-rocky type stuff, because Seafield is not, principally an IDM thing. It's a post-rock, Bark Psychosis sort of a thing. It's like the Simon Reynolds thing, his whole, pitching post-rock and loving what these bands are doing. Totally true, totally legitimate. And look what happens when they leave Warp and they go to Reflex. Like, another total piece of shit. Like, Reflex had absolutely no clue how to design anything. But this was after they sort of had broken up. They did Chivox, and U Treat was the lead EP for it. But yeah, I mean, Warp rises on the back of things like Nightmares on Wax, but largely Aphex Twin. And then they become really relatively quickly, because again, I'm going to talk about, Scala was the thing with Locust. I think it was this project with Locust and maybe her, I'm not sure. But what happens is Warp starts to get money. Warp starts to do well and start moving product. And all of a sudden the Designers Republic like kicks it way up. And that's when B12 goes from being like the most embarrassing looking thing you've ever seen to, holy shit, this is before Wipeout XL even came out. Like, it's just this complete Vangelis worship, future tech BS. And the design language at Warp immediately explodes, and it sort of takes over the whole thing a little bit, because by the time you get to the compilations, by the time they've done their whole shot and it's the end of the 90s, these We Are Reasonable People and like the all the compilations they did celebrating their decade of success and excellence and everything, I can't even read this shit. Like, it was trying my eyes when I was in my 20s, let alone fucking now. And then of course it retreats the other direction, with the inscrutable Autechre LP7, LP5, whatever the hell it's called. And this is the pivot point coming out of, classic IDM mid 90s Aphex Twin into what Autechre ends up doing with Chiastic Slide and shit, that's where I checked out. But all through the 90s, Aphex is doing, his own thing. He's got Reflex. He's working with, Grant and Paradinas. I've always talked about this. I love this Kid Spatula CD. So Chiastic Slide's great, but it's the turning point, is all I was saying. It's after that, it's like Oval with Doc. After Doc, it's like, who gives a shit? That's I I don't get these people that are still tuned into Autechre and like stoked when they do a 24-hour live stream. Like it's just not, I don't know. But yeah, he's doing Caustic Window, and again, it's all these fake names and catalog building. I've gone through this. If you watch the old 2-year-old or something Aphex Twin video I did, he goes in for everything. When D&B comes out, when drum and bass blows up, he's like, fuck that, I'm gonna take you out. You want me to tell you what drum and bass is about? And he does the hangable auto bulb singles, which were such a blast, and ultimately I think this, Window Liquor is the end of IDM. Like, this is the end of all of it. After this, it becomes, electronica, and I'll get into how the European and American labels, by this time, have gone in this completely sappy, cardigan sweater direction. That I'm not saying all the music wasn't bad, all around or all through, but it just wasn't. Oh wait. Like when I think of like 95 into 96, like I Care Because You Do into Richard D. James, like that's the peak. And that's when the second generation comes up. That's when you start getting what will become things like Burger Inc. And there's a million things I got over here pulled to get into, because it's the second generation is really a grab bag. Like, I guess I should just go through it. Where is that stack? There's so much. No, I can't. I got to start at the beginning with this because I got to clear that stuff. Anyway, oh yeah, and I forgot that obviously you got to have this on vinyl, but I never opened it because why? I don't need to. I've only ever listened to it on CD, and this isn't a first pressing or anything, but it's still the Apollo RNS. Hey, but yeah, so let me go through a couple of these stacks because I just got to clear them or my head's just going to keep spinning in circles. So what I was talking about before is, when we get out of the hacienda and rave and all this shit becomes conceptually kind of a big deal. Like, we're not talking chart stuff yet, because even like I talk about the narcissism, like KLF, like they decide they're going to start this whole new thing for space, a different label, space '01, and this is right on the back of What Time Is Love and shit, and it's cool. I mean, it's more like, White Room, Chill Out, whatever. Future Sound of London is something that was making shitloads of money soon after this, and this is nods to the sort of bio-organic bullshit, Banco de Gaia into Loop Guru and all that shit that comes on. But 386 watching. Okay, that can't be legit. You gotta be fucking kidding me. There's no way there are 400 people. Someone did something. I mean, what the fuck ever. I don't know. If somebody is paying fucking robot spam streamers I can't do anything about it. Anyway, when it really starts to fracture is bands that blow up and go major label. And an interesting side point on this, right? So this is Orb's Compact Disco, and then 2 years later they had Assassin, which was a big hit. But this was absolutely monster. And it's the same thing that happens in exactly the same way almost with Orbital, who really launches this with Chime, and Belfast. And Belfast to me is like the fucking one. But when Orbital comes up, they're on FFRR, which is a sub of London. I think it wasn't bought after. I think it already was a sub of London. And so the this whole thing of like, are we gonna be this indie, unique label? I'm gonna be this identity. I'm gonna hide. I'm gonna have 17 fake identities, and that a new genre comes out, and I'm gonna make an identity to put out a record and compete in that genre. These bands like Orb and Orbital say, no, I'm going to be a band in the way that a band has historically been. And the referendum on the band is, can they play live? And both of these bands crack the entire, like, I don't want to say, the public perception of electronic music changes 100% in 93 and 94 with live, these bands being able to put on ridiculous stonking hour and a half sets that just crush everything. Like, and like hearing this kind of stuff, particularly Halcyon, like the Radicchio EP, right? Hearing this kind of stuff in the, goddamn massive, Reading, Glastonbury, whatever festival. Forget the rave thing. So you've been in Blackpool and you've been driving all over the country and you've been in clubs and you've been to club nights and you've been to Shoom and Naked and Temperance, and you've done, that's been going for years. And when it crosses over, Orbital set, really, I think it was 94. That's like the oasis at Nebworth for electronic music. And that's one of the reasons that I think Aphex Twin and IDM proper sort of pulled back, because I mean, Snivelization was still good. The one after, the sort of, cashing in the reputation and fame they got out of that great performance and out of just the consistent, amazing, like these two records right in a row, so good. And the Orb, in the same way, like I'm saying, they've got it. They did Blue Room, right? Blue Room charts. I don't even know, it might have been top 20 Blue Room charts. It's like a 40-minute unending, trancey jam. And I think it might even still be in some sort of record book in that way. So my point is, there is this big audience for this stuff, whether it's intelligent dance music or it's ambient house or it's trance or whatever. The whole, like, the brain dance thing with Aphex, the on the back of the Warp artificial intelligence things, it's like, do you think along the same wavelength? If so, send tapes to us. And Sheffield, like, what the fuck? It was so early days, but it was so ostentatious in that nerdy backpacking, anorak 20 something student way, all of it, and that's adorable in retrospect. And I don't fault any of them for it, but Orb and Orbital really blow it out of the water, majorly, and it changes. I think one of the big changes is decisions that people like. Um, you know, I guess Carl Craig's already established, but like Thievery Corporation, Kruder and Dorfmeister, and LTJ Buchem with Good Looking Records. Um, like Music and Atlantis and stuff. Like, there's just some stone killer, chill out D&B, whatever you want to call it, on these compilations. There's 9 of them. And the DJ Kick series, this compendium is a nice little wrap up on a lot of the early DJ Kick stuff. But this is where it's like, this begets the superstar DJ. This begets fucking BT and the whole, like, crazy fucking industrial trance, cheese ball fucking shit. Um, it it really, I mean, yeah, I mean, back then it's still good. It's still 100% in the compilation mindset, because this has got, like, he's got Seba on here. Who were the other ones that were serial contributors to this? Seba and Invisible Man. I don't remember who that was, but so LTJ deciding to go this way, you got to wonder, some of these people, like, a lot of the knocks on this is prejudicial stereotyping, suggesting that, like, the word Eurotrash is not really politically correct, but, like, there's a suggestion that, like, a lot of, like, rich dalliant, dilettante types are getting involved here, and that this is all like a framework for doing blow and partying and having expensive watches and cars and shit. Like, it does change. It really, really changes, right smack in the mid into the late 90s, because of the money that's flying around. And that's what always happens. Money changes everything, baby. Um, Intelligent Jungle, right? Again, but it really, and then this is great too. This is, and then eventually you get like the chill out stuff. And now, I mean, chill out's like a big, it's been a big nostalgia genre for quite a while. Um, but this was this was a pretty decent late little history of it. But Chill Out and Trans Europe Express, like I said, these series, this is the Textures retrospective on it. These were really, really big catch-alls for the vibe and the genre being bigger than the artist. That's what electronic music is about. Frequently, the artist is subservient to the genre, the boundaries of the genre, and that is something some artists were really into. It's cool to only be known in the circuit or whatever, you know. It you know, certainly Good Looking Records was very much a factory with its recording artists. Um, but it you know, oh, someone was asking me about this. I don't want this in a totally unrelated way, but in a way that made a relatively large crossover here in North America and in the United States. The preciousness and the kind of retreat into what eventually becomes glitch. That starts in the mid '90s for sure. And Oval and Mule Plateau, you know, we were talking about Gas in the chat here. Someone was, um, you know, there's this whole other side of it. So Mouse on Mars is really one of the early artists here. This isn't. This, I mean, this was their signature album to most people. This Too Pure record. Again, look at Too Pure's graphic design. Hot shit. So it, but there's two later Mouse on Mars ones. They're in here somewhere that American audiences tend to like because they're more like this glitch shit. Microstoria and the inscrutable, you know, thrill jockey stuff. um, this is where, like I'm talking about, the kind of small indie bands, um, you know, the Microstory is the Pansonics of the world, exactly, all this shit. This was so locked in and hit so hard with American college age kids like me in the 90s, because prior to that, it had been Excursions in Ambience, you know, big compilations, Caroline Records, Astroworks, Subprint. You know, it had been Moby doing the ambient record. This I still fully fucking ride for this thing. It's so good. But these are massively, you know, big releases, either distributed or, you know, he was on Instinct, but that's, you know, bullshit. Um, and you know, and even stuff like this is on Virgin, you know, like the Future Sound of London. So this whole vibe of chunky, big sort of big name major label distributed, and very generic, in a way, sonically certainly, stuff has been one of the only options we've had. That stuff keeps going on. And the Virgin comps are pretty good, you know. But yeah, then Everything Is Wrong is, it's so funny when, like, if you read Wikipedia's and like when kids are trying to talk about this stuff now, they're like, oh, you know, IDM really, the peak of IDM was Radiohead's Kid A. I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? Holy shit, guys. No, it was Everything Is Wrong by Moby. That was the record that put this on the map for most Americans, right on the back of Selected Ambient Works Volume 2, which was like, it was literally like a 2001: A Space Odyssey scenario. When you Saw 2, it like, and you saw that cover, it was just like, what, like it had a presence that is really difficult to describe. And then half it, like in a lot of cases, you'd go into a kid's dorm room and you'd hear like, and you'd just be like, what the, and kids are smoking tons of weed, so then you're hearing like dun, dun, and all this, like you've never heard Eno, like you don't know anything about, you couldn't even get these records, man. You don't know anything about Redelius and fucking, you know, Harold Budd and Eno's The Pearl, all this like fucking Sunder, you know, discrete music, like going back to he when Eno was releasing his own records, you know, he did the Gavin Bryars Sinking of the Titanic record that is like $600 for an original pressing. Um, no one knows about this stuff. I mean, you can barely get it unless you're like a record geek. No one's telling you about, you know, music for airports and stuff. I mean, honestly, it wasn't getting a ton of attention. The explosion of stuff like this, like Aphex Twin, is one of the reasons this, you know, happened. And the music journalists certainly knew about it. And they asked Brian Eno, they were like, what do you think about this Aphex Twin guy? Because he's kind of in your kitchen. And Eno was like, it sounds like the sort of thing I would have done, you know, the first day I got a new piece of equipment. I would have disregarded all of it. Like, it just totally takes a huge shit on Richard D. James, like when he's not even a big deal yet. Eno's so fucking pissed that this guy's like coming into his fucking territory. YouTube sidebar core. Yeah, tell me about it. You wouldn't believe the algo shit that got pumped up my daughter for listening to chill beats to study to. Her whole YouTube algo totally inverted the second she's found chill beats to study to. Yeah, she's 12. Anyway, so, you know, I mentioned America, right? And America, this is where Acid House, you know, if you want to put a point on it, essentially has come from, with Acid Tracks and with all the stuff going on with Juan Atkins and Detroit techno and stuff. there's no notion of purists yet, right? And so there's a couple of weird things that happen because obviously not everybody in America is like hop in the pond to go see Aphex Twin. So there's two really important people probably you could say that are for before a second generation definitively like Carl Craig, Pete Namlock and Richie Houghton. So Richie Houghton's big thing is Plastic Man. But this is already legendary and massive, and I'm pretty sure if you do any kind of Last FM, whatever, you're going to get this record. This is not going to be hard to find. But what is going to be hard to find is the stuff he did with Tetsuo Inoue and Richie Houghton and Pete Namlock. These are really astonishingly smart. The absorption of what was going on with this new spacey stuff, with all the English and European stuff. These two records, 2350 Broadway and From Within, these are just, oh man, they're so smooth. And so Tetsuo Inoue, yeah, this is on Fax. So Fax is a big part of this, but it doesn't get really any credit for being one of the foremost participants in this IDM, ambient techno, whatever you want to call it. The Fax label and also some partnership stuff because they license. But again, so I mentioned Namlock because Pete Namlock meets or knows Bill Laswell, and then Bill Laswell decides he's going to spend 3 years headlong diving into this shit. And so, Laswell starts putting together tons and tons of, look, I'm not saying it's disingenuous. I'm sure he loved this stuff and he's always looking for inspiration. But, like Silent Recoil and the Divination Project that Laswell does, these are big stabs from, somebody that's coming from another, like it's a well-established, worked with everybody actor. The fact that Laswell jumps into this from his whole dub thing is a big moment that's not necessarily recognized because this is somebody who just toils in obscurity his whole career. But, Silent Recoil Dub System 1, he calls it. Particularly the Divination Volume 2 is stronger than 1. I actually sold 1. But yeah, Pete rip, totally. The Tetsuo Inoue thing is weird because, like, the whole like Moo online culture loves a fake detective story. So they're convinced he was never real and he's an alias because, like I said, half these artists are doing bullshit with aliases. It's like this big secret, and it's almost like how deep are you into this shit? Do you know that so and so is so and so? Do you know who the Dice Man is? Like, do you know who did the Universal Indicator records? Like that bullshit. Um, I think Tetsuo Inoue was a real dude who just stopped doing music. I don't know what the fuck. But he's responsible, or at least is credited on some of my favorite stuff that comes from outside this axis rather of Warp and RNS and whether it's Too Pure or Planet E, Reflex, all these other labels, and Plus Eight, Richie Houghton's label Plus Eight too, and Good Looking, and that becomes drum and bass, but. Um, that in America, and I should also mention Vienna too, because when this thing changes and becomes truly like IDM, Vienna and Vienna Tone for a hot minute in the late '90s had some unbelievable shit going on. I mean, for real. Count Basic's Speechless Drum and Bass. My favorite is, though, I've talked about this before. There's a Farmer's Manual tune on one of their first 12 inches called Audio Detacker, which is like one of my favorite pieces of music, full stop, ever. It would be categorized essentially as a D&B, sort of industrial D&B track. But yeah, the Vienna Tone comp, I've stomped for this everywhere since it came out. It is such a nice sort of, Patuznik's in here. I have that sleeve somewhere. It's this stuff comes and goes, but I mean, and then Compact and Sub Rosa. I mean, we're getting into the Mill Plateau period and the Compact and the inscrutable electronica. So I mean, I think it is sort of true that by the time you get to the Oval, C Field, this is an American compilation of like licensed stuff. Corners of the Mouth. The dude from Mice Parade did this. Oh God, I forget his name. And it was supposed to be a benefit record, Bubblecore, but he got Experimental Audio Research on here. You got Scanner to give him the track, like pretty crazy. Adam Pierce, yeah, thanks. The xylophone player. But yeah, it oh man, I was talking about the graphic design thing. The funniest thing that like straight up 1, 2. This will tell you what happens between like 94, 95, and 96 to an artist in electronic music after Designers Republic. This is like a Kenichi record called, under the name Grip, called Flare, and then boom, like immediately everything is anime and tiny text and boxes. Yeah, he was the bassist in the Swirlies. Um, and then you got he's an ornithologist, I think. He played drums. Oh, I'm sorry. The ornithologist is the bassist who's different. Yeah, forget it. Sorry, I got that backwards. Um, but yeah, so in '95, our boys, well, not our boys, but their friend, the second generation starts. Aphex Twin is huge, massive. Top line. John Peel on BBC TV. Do I have the Res soundtrack? Yeah, yeah. I have tons of Underworld, by the way, but that's so outside of that's just mainstream, banga, fucking Death in Vegas shit. Like that's not what's the Crystal Method, big beat. Like forget it. That's a whole. We're not even going near that. IDM and electronica after it is kind of a blend. I feel about these. These are about smaller, yes, it's theoretically stuff you can listen to at home, right? But it's not that. It's people who would never fucking be caught dead in a club dancing. Like I'm not going to be on E in upstate New York at a white liberal arts college. I'm going to be in a dorm room. So like, four on the floor, like unending fucking 145 BPM shit is not really like you can put on a black light and maybe it's fun once in a while, but it's sort of stupid. So, I mean, there's a big student aspect of this and a boffin aspect of this, and that's what Aphex Twin was, and Musique was, and all the things they did are just they resonated with that kind of a kid, and so those kids went and started record labels. So, did I go over the Stare Through EP? No, but the Stare Through EP is Seafield's best release. I mean, it is the signature post rock ambient dub, whatever you want to call it. Spangle is just a fucking legendary anthem. Like that was my favorite song for like a year. I mean the tones but it's funny when you find out how it was made. You're just like, God damn, I could have done that. But I mean, I love what Clifford did with Seafield. I just thought they're incredible. But yeah, so Scam. This is Bowl of Soup, and this is an original where it's in Braille. Scam Records. Um, this is kind of like a second generation thing, and it's telling that like from the beginning, Boards of Canada wanted to tell everybody they'd been a band since like 1986. Like, what are you talking about? No, you haven't. Twoism and High Scores don't even come out until like late '96, I think. Like Boards of Canada wanted to backdate themselves so badly. It was so embarrassing. And I just hated that they were such a second generation follow on thing. And I hated how like corny their whole nature movie shit was with Music Has the Right. I did love In a Beautiful Place Out in the Country. I still think that's a great EP. But yeah, oh man. Yeah. If I unload the Mask vinyl, I didn't like Giogati at all. I don't even know how to fucking pronounce it. I mean, I just think I've made this analogy before. Boards of Canada is to electronic music what Guided by Voices is to indie rock. It's the shit you got late. And, I was sitting there with all these fucking kids at Pitchfork, like, did you guys never hear Autechre's Bass Cadet EP? Like, did you never hear Garbage, Anvil Vapor? Do you have Tri Repetile? Like, what the fuck? There's nothing new here. There's just watered down fucking bullshit. Like, I can't fucking stand. And the way that even the song titles are such begging, corny, obvious shit. Like Turquoise Hexagon Sun. Get the fuck out of here. Like, Jesus Christ. Like chemistry, take the fucking pictures out of your chemistry set book and that's your fucking branding. Like, oh, it's just sickeningly basic shit. But the Bowl of Record Soup is really fucking good. This is a great CD. And I mean, the Scam guys, fine, whatever. They put out like 6 records, like on fucking like 6 tapes, 4 cassettes here. Like, oh, I'm so blessed. I have one of the original 30 pressings of some bullshit fucking half-ass Boards of Canada 12-inch. Yay! I can retire. But yeah, Garbage. Yeah, you can see the viewership went from 400 to $150 as soon as I started going in on Boards of Canada. Guestcom. No, I don't have the Guestcom mini disc. It was a rad idea. So the Guestcom is the dudes who started Scam, and I think one of the guys in board BOC. I don't even fucking know, but it was a joke where mini discs had some really unique technical aspects, which is that they had metadata or index files, which were actually computer files. So you could screw with that stuff and have the tracks like play, like you'd have to rewind them to get to stuff, or you'd edit the metadata table. So the funniest thing, I have a ton of mini discs. I just don't have the JustCom mini disc. Intentionally, because it has a zero seek time because of the buffer, the Guestcom JustCom mini disc was you just put it in and hit random, and the sounds would just bounce all over and recycle, which is kind of cool. So, um, I talked about Burger Inc. and this sort of big stuff launching out of and creating second gen kind of electronica and IDM and Mill Plateau, as I mentioned, and the really really crazy obscure industrial, like barely there, death, dark ambient stuff. Like some of the Farmer's Manual stuff, and Funk Storung comes in, and Funk Storung immediately pivots and becomes this like rubber stamp brush with which they remix. They take their crunchy, glitchy sound, and it really is sort of like glitch techno in a way. But it's sort. I mean, I don't know if I call it IDM, especially since they almost immediately became like a hip remix act, and they made their name on the Bjork "All Is Full of Love" remix, which is astonishingly good and like a signature important piece of late twilight mainstream IDM and electronica. And yeah, they were a complete Prefuse rip. I mean, no question. Prefuse 73 was like one of those harsh acts that was coming up, and full credit to that for sure. You're right. But yeah, so I talked about like in the later period. How do I do this? It's really hard to line this all up. It's just so much information. But like in Europe, and then eventually America, I guess. The late 90s, the very late 90s into the early 2000s is when you get more music. You get Thomas More, you get Compact blowing up and doing sub labels like Echo. This is on a sub label called Mule Musique. Why does this need to be? But it's a good little record. I mean, Echo Euphoria by Doubly. I have a lot of weird one-offs like this that were just like sent to me. Yeah, Tiger Beat dipped into it a bit too, totally. Um, and then this I picked up actually at Amoeba, weirdly, when I was out there. But this I mentioned this in the back when we were doing a Discord. There's still one, but when I was involved in it, Theorem had this great fucking 12-inch called, I think it was Cinder, and Embed, this 12-minute fucking jam. But this is really hot shit. Like this compilation, you should be able to get it for almost nothing. I paid $10 for it at Amoeba. They were a great one of these anonymous, ambient D&B, intelligent, whatever bands. I mean, it's got more beat than non-dance IDM for sure. It's sort of minimal techno. Oh yeah, I forgot. This is so good. I mean, this is really recent, but yeah. Oh, this is such a good fucking 12-inch. I had just picked this up. When did I get this? 2015. FX mentioned this is like a 2013 12-inch that's like, oh my god, it's so good. So if you can find it, I mean, it's on YouTube for Christ's sake. It's the done 12-inch. This is Global Groove, and Global Groove is one of the real like long-standing, still banging, things there. Yeah, it's such a gore. You just have to buy the 12-inch. You know what I mean? But it's such a good record. You should have it anyway. But yeah, so and then then you have Toytronic, right? Toytronic in Japan was really doing some good stuff. This compilation, Neurokinetic, is a great way to check out what they had going on. Again, this is super super late. I think this is even 2000 or 2001. And they had Abfart Tinwil. This was another one. This is really glitch. Like this is painful, stereotypical glitch if you can ever track this one down. But at the same time, big bangers are still coming out. Speedy J 97, Public Energy has Patterns, and the Patterns, this jam Patterns just fucking goes for days. Like and it's weird because it's on a major, like. But Speedy J, this was on Plus 8, actually. This is originally on Plus 8, Richie Houghton's label. But Speedy J with Ginger kind of goes into that superstar DJ trip. And, he pivots. But he had some great stuff early on. that I would definitely recommend. But this is a big one I wanted to mention because before I get into more or kind of some American ideas, um, Toytronic did this incredible fucking set. Uh, which I don't know how hard it is to get it. But it's Miles Tillman, Low Profile Society, and Lost. So this is like Miles Tillman has some really good stuff around this time. This is the Underland EP. This is probably my favorite thing of his, barring this, which is the 3D Concepts compilation. Now, the reason this was this is some of my favorite kind of minimal IDM-y. By this point, it's nostalgic IDM. Um, it's like throwback, keeping in this lane. Aerovane, Aerovane's Tides was a big one early on. I think that was on what label was that? That was another big label. What the hell are they called? Anybody? There is a Discord that some people here are running. You can figure out how to get in on it. But anyway, God damn, what's the record label I'm thinking of? They did Aerovane early. I'm not gonna sit here and have you guys deal with me googling stuff. But the reason that 3D Concepts thing was so crushed to me was if you were able to track down the vinyl, it's like the most beautiful vinyl you've ever seen. City Center, thank you. Yeah, City Center's mega IDM. So this set was just obscene. Like I think this is 2000 or 2001, but Lois and Tillman and Low End Society, like it's just I'm so glad I got this set. Like it was not easy to source at all, but it was one that I just felt like this is sort of the peak of what Toytronic and this crew of people have sort of done, and it's very distinct, and it deserves to be remembered in my view. And I think Toytronic, if you are into IDM and the whole idea of this thing, is something you really should cop on. They did good stuff, but in America, for me, what was funny is like more was sort of after we had, I don't know when the hell this came out. I don't know if this was 98. I mean, I don't, this is frustrating because my memory on all this is going to be kind of blurry necessarily. Anyway, more music, Thomas, he starts to shift away from pure IDM into sort of pop. So this is Blue Sky and Clear, the Slow Dive tribute EP. And then this is the big time like breakthrough. When this came out, putting the more back in Morrissey, like I mentioned the that what the hell was it called? The DJ, the huge DJ thing that blew up in 2004. What the fuck was it called? God damn, man. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting when I was talking about it last time. But like this compilation, everybody got. This was like, if you think of what Vampire Weekend was, How to Kill a DJ. Thank you. Yeah, very much like How to Kill a DJ. Putting the more back in Morrissey, everyone had this. People that you didn't even know cared or knew about small indie music. I mean, if they lived in a big city, they were getting this. I don't know how, word of mouth, whatever. In America, this really was huge with like the art scene. Like I had friends who worked down in New York for Matthew Barney. One of them worked for Barney, and the other guy worked for Terry. The other gal, sorry, worked for Terry Richardson frequently before he got canceled. And like this is what they'd play when they were doing photo shoots. Like they'd put on this entire comp and play it front to back, both CDs. And then smartly he built on it and he did the Slow Dive comp. But by that time, he's broken Ulrich Schnauz, and Fenez and my favorite, obviously, I mentioned in almost every video, Manual, but B. Fleischman and Isan. Isan is a weird one because they were relatively early. I remember hearing about Isan, and like Isan is a Thai word. I think it means peace or happiness. But I remember them coming out and it was like, they're the next Mouse on Mars. They're the next Oval. They're the next big IDM is Isan. And then like they did nothing. They had like one release and then nothing. But by this time it's blown up and it's like I said, it's sweater wearing, cute, non-threatening, palatable, blissful music. It's what becomes Dintel, right? And Dintel's, the song, I don't give a shit about the one with Ben Gibbard on it. It's fucking terrible. But and the postal service, fuck that shit. But when Dintel first came out, he was working with this young lady, and there's this song called I think it's Everywhere, Everyone, Everywhere or something on that record that is just fucking undeniable. And Life of Possibilities, the album it's from, Life is Full of Possibilities, is still a good record. He wanted to go the way he wanted to go. Whatever. He can do whatever he wants, you know. It was not my deal. I didn't anywhere anyone. Yeah, goddamn. That was, I mean, just on loop, you know. And that's that whole thing. Like I talk about this. There was this other obscure band I love called French Paddle Boat. This is like early gold wave shit, like the shit I was doing. Because my first release is right here, actually. And I was on a label that put out a Nissan record too. But this is my first release ever. This was on Audio Dregs in '98, I think. It's a CDR silkscreen. That's from a Winnie the Pooh book. And you know, there was another guy, Dim Dim, but this was my college buddy that I was in a pop punk band, and we all like got into IDM when we were, you know, our band was a performative fun thing. Like we were all into like crazy, weird underground shit, right? And his younger brother, my buddy's younger brother, that you know, the guy who ran the label, was Evan. And Evan put out this, which is 100% IDM record called Parking Lot Music. This is before he starts Ratatat, and obviously Ratatat were at like a mainstream massive festival band for a period of the 2000s. But when he first put a record out, his first record here in 2000, which really I was listening to it most of '99, is this Parking Lot Music record, and he made this record on notebooks, like with microphones tapping on things on his desk, and that's like so the fucking IDM story of the late '90s. It was like, you know, Farmer's Manual. I go on about, you know, this. It's like how can we make the craziest sound that no one's ever heard before, and that's the sort of stuff Aphex Twin used to do too, you know. And then he would take it in another direction too. I've talked before about how you'd hide pictures in the waveforms of like Nanu and some of these dumb, you know, experiment, not Nanu, the other one. But anyway, that sort of obsessiveness is like, it's almost fake. It's almost baked into IDM at this point. Um, and yeah, and so then, you know, Manual, the iDrive 12-inch and Until Tomorrow, and then into Ascend. This was really his peak period, 2001, 2002. And I just really preferred, I just still think sonically, no one could touch this guy. I think his name was Pete Monk. I can't remember this stuff anymore. Nobody could touch this guy because he was a real guitarist, and he really invested so much into these productions. Like, it's not just clicks and cuts. It's not just, you know, copy and pasting fucking grit over your gold wave file, which I did. But he's just got such incredible fucking, and it's original. It doesn't sound like Robin Guthrie. It doesn't sound like Danielle Lanois. It sounds like him. It's got like a psychedelic bent to it. His effects rigs are all just like, nobody's done stuff like this as far as I'm concerned. So Jonas Monk is his name. And so I, you know, I want to make sure and really, really shout that dude out. I love him. I love his music. I think he did, who cares? He did whatever he did. But there was a period there, especially like in the Audio Galaxy days, there was manual stuff you could get that wasn't released. And I got a bunch of that. I don't know what we're doing on time. This is another, oh, this is a good one. This is on Shuttle. So I don't know if anybody heard this one, but there was only 1,000 of these. But this is his record, came out on, who put it out? It's 12K. Shuttle 358's Chessa. This is a great little IDM record if you can find it. It's on 12K. It's on Discogs, probably. But I found this one, and I'm like, you know, I never saw this like pop by anybody as a good IDM record. So look up Chessa. I don't know. But yeah, so, you know, full circle, that's sort of all the shit I pulled to just go through this whole thing. There's still a ton of good resonant music, but not all of it's really aged well. And I mean, particularly Black Dog has not aged great. He blew up biggest with Babylon. He got Ofra Haza on it. And, you know, this was his big moment. But like Black Dog went in a million different directions, not all of which I was into. I think he just was putting out too much shit, you know. Music for Adverts was cute and everything, but the Black Dog, you know, and the production around it, I don't know. What just happened? What just happened? Did I just lose my my audio? The AirPods made a noise at me. I think we've probably gone on long enough. So, you know, that's a good bang through. Yeah, that's about an hour. We should, you know, I told you, like, I got to stop doing an hour and a half. So, I think it's warning me that the battery's at 20%. So anyway, that I wanted to do pulls for this because it's really it's boring to talk about it, in any other way. There's a bunch of weird outliers and shit. Yeah, Gustavus, that's true. Yeah, Black Dog had a big blow up in Argentina. That's true. Um, yeah, I cannot do another hour on IDM. Much as I loved it, and much as it's still ripe. Um, I think there's definitely going to be, if there's not already, a massive fucking renaissance with this stuff, because it's easy to make at home and everybody's stuck at home. So, while you're out there doing your Zoom emo nights, maybe like make some music instead. I don't know. Like, so, I mean, yeah, the SoundCloud thing's been going forever, but everybody's trying to shop a beat, and, everything is like, all the attention and creativity is on the next new hot, e-boy, e-girl, TikTok, fucking SoundCloud type track. Um, and fine, but the thing with IDM is it was more about marketing the artists behind it, and that sort of narcissism and the that part of it died off when it became commoditized, and it did. Boards of Canada and that whole 95 generation to '01 to me is the here comes Owl City, guys. It's not going to take much longer. And that kind of really sucked because I was always into shit that didn't sound like everything else. I mean, I didn't even pull half the crap because I already did in the Aphex Twin video. So like, go watch the Aphex video I did, because that's, I already talk about half this stuff. I talk about analog bulb bath and stuff, and someone's asking me about musique. Like, yeah, this is the original Tango Invectif, which you don't want to get the original actually because it's only a single CD. There's a reissue that's 2 CDs of great shit. So, you want to get this, and then you want to get Bluff Limbo. This was 2 CDs out of the gate. Bluff Limbo has my favorite musique song, which is Dance 2. Dance 2 is just, oh my God. Does it crush? Does it ever crush? It's so good. And then the major label debut, he goes to Astralworks and does In Pine Effect. This has not aged well. Now Roy Castle is good, and what's the other, Within a Sound? Holy shit, Within a Sound is still like eternal. But a lot of this, I think he had kind of put out stuff that he loved and he knew was great on his own sort of, on his label with Aphex, and then In Pine Effect, I think he was a little bit tapped, which isn't to say he didn't come back strong because, where is it? Yeah. Oh, I should also, I guess, mention Tom Middleton. Tom Middleton was a buddy of Aphex Twins. He did one album as Reload, but he helped make Entrance to Exit on the first Analog Bubble Bath single. This Reload CD that he did is pretty good. There's a really good song called Pesci on it. So yeah, this is a yeah, cool chair, right? But yeah, he did Brace Yourself, Jason. So this was sort of his like major, like making good on his major label potential with the album that this is from. But this has Abmoit. So there's a really good IDM ambient techno song on here, not techno, ambient, whatever you want to call it, downbeat, trip hop, maybe even a little Abmoit. It's really good, or I don't know how you pronounce it. But yeah, Brace Yourself, Jason was a great single. And then even after this, on the record after this, the song The Fear was pretty good. It's got a kind of a soul singer on it. He's got like string hits on it. Yeah, The Fear was good. But yeah, the very late 90s, by the time after I Care Because You Do, the last 3-ish years of the 90s is sort of like Aphex Twin picking fights with D&B guys. Like Aphex Twin hearing Port Rhombus in 96 by Square Pusher and being like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Like, there's no question. When this came out, like Aphex Twin was like, okay, I got this. I'm still in the game. And it's like he had to go work out. Like he was fucking lifting weights to do Richard D. James' album and Girl Boy because he was so pissed at how good this fucking EP was. And obviously the album Feed Me Weird Things, which has like Tundra, Ernest Borgnine, like the first two. It's so painful how bad and how just endless and protracted Tom Jenkins' career was, because he came out of the gate and he really knocked Aphex Twin on his fucking ass with this EP and with Feed Me Weird Things. Two of my favorite IDM albums of all time, releases of all time, even though they're really more drum and bass and jungle as it's coming up. But he's like got that Aphex Twin mentality, so that's not good enough for him. And Hard Normal Daddy, fucking, you will not quit with that. You will not stop with that. And then Donkey Rhubarb. So this, I talked about this too. This was one of my favorite EPs. This is another sort of, this is coming out of I Care Because You Do, but it's like he really wants to get Pancake Lizard out there because Goldie's got his label, and down tempo and trip hop and shit is just massive. So he does his sort of like trip hop song with Pancake Lizard. So you got to get that one too. But yeah, that there's fractures that happen after 95, I guess I'd say. 89 to 95, that's IDM. That's your IDM. That's We Are the Music Makers. That's all this like great early, there's not crystalline production yet. There's not Big Beat. There's not, Chemical Brothers. This hasn't become something where bands like Radiohead start dicking around with electronic washes and sort of moves. It's purely coming out of a reaction to the orb and orbital and mainstream, rave, whatever you want to call it, and the shaman being on, and fucking Ebenezer Good, and even early on with D-Mob and stuff that people liked. It's like there's this proletariat aspect to it. There's the Euro trash aspect to it. There's there's all of that, and it's this desire to be an iconoclast, to be this individualistic thing, that all of the best IDM people had. And it wasn't necessarily the artists every time out, because Mike Peroninas was relatively anonymous this whole way through. Sometimes it was the labels, but in either way, when RNS gets those big releases and Warp starts to take off, there are choices there. LFO decides to go, Nightmares on Wax. They don't give a crap about it's shitty to say that, and it's not necessarily true. I'm just saying that, like, the kind of narcissistic egotism and the challenging yourself and the obsessiveness, of the best IDM, that's what distinguishes it as a genre to me. And it wasn't just these, few people in England or Belgium or Vienna or whatever. Like I'm saying, Laswell put out, and clearly working with others, with Namlook and Houghton and Plastic Man too. Like, there's tons of good. Plus Eight's a great fucking label. Um, and so there's plenty to dig through. And I guess that's sort of what I wanted to do. I just wanted to blitz through the general triangulation of this and the two eras, when it goes from, early electronic dance music, intelligent dance music and all that shit, because techno and acid house and everything is still ironing itself out. And then D&B comes up, and it's sort of like D&B and jungle. That's when it just becomes nuts and stupid, and everything is like swamp core, happy hardcore, metalheads comes out, and dub plate and all this shit. And like, yeah, platinum is like no fucking joke. It's great shit. But once it becomes like sort of chill out and sort of jazz and shit, and like, oh yeah, Ben Neal, right? I pulled that too. This is take a pull on. Whoa, shit. The advantage of live stream for looking totally fucking cool. But this is a neat one. Ben Neal. This is like some cheesy, this is not cheesy. It's smoothie jazz electronic. I never sold it. I kept it. So, I will still throw this on from time to time. It's not bad. It's got some really good shit. I mean, DJ Spooky's on it. DJ Olive. So yeah, if you can find this, I almost died right there. But yeah, this is actually pretty good, man. I mean, it's like it's definitive chill, right? There's so many weird things, like so many weird little fucking records, like fucking Patio, Parallel Play. Who's ever gonna hear this shit again? I took punts on tons of shit that like I said, has not aged well. But yeah, so I think that the whole resident advisor thing has made this difficult. Red Bull Academy and RA have made electronic music broadly really fucking hard to get into, because it's such a fucking policed scene. And there have been various artists that I've known or talked to, about whatever, that whole period, which is essentially ending. I mean, I guess not. Fucking RA gets like, what did they get? 350,000 pounds or 750,000 pounds in relief money? Fucking resident advisor. Did that really fucking happen? Good Jesus Christ, man. 750,000 pounds for your fucking website. Blow that out your ass. I mean, could they, like, and the contact tracing scheme over there has identified like one case, right? And then there was this Excel spreadsheet. What the fuck are they doing in England right now? Get your fucking shit together, guys. But anyway, Politics is shadow rewards. Like, what the fuck am I talking about? Anyway, um, I've been punching holes in my drywall all day. Yeah, we're gonna change it from the inside out right now. But anyway, so I would say that the resident advisor period of manufacturing names was supremely fucking annoying. And they thought that they were fighting the good fight in the sense that, well, we're not Avicii, we're not, fucking stadium overdose techno, like trance house, fucking Miami shit. So I think they felt like they were, like I say, fighting the good fight and helping this genre and broadly electronic music in general. But I don't know, man. Yeah, Boiler Room was just fucking brutal. I think the whole idea of DJing got totally confused, and that's something that in America I don't think we've ever really gotten right since the heyday. Since the original '80s stuff and Chicago and Detroit and New York too, and garage like it. Yeah, the idea of DJing, there was a really bad period because of LCD Sound System and How to Kill a DJ and stuff, where it just became like playing fucking music on your iPod for 5 years. And then it became like, well, okay, I'll buy a fucking bunch of Pioneer bullshit and I'll fucking DJ with fake CD wheels and like it's all fucking pre-programmed. Shut the fuck up. It's not DJing. Get the fuck out of here. If DJing has any validity, it's in actually fucking running decks, responding to people live, and being in a fucking club where people are dancing. Jesus Christ. Like, can we fucking stop with this shit? Yeah, do work or go home for real. Like, it's just, if you're going to do work, do work. It just drives me nuts. Again, it's because again, here's what I'm saying. These are the kids who should be making IDM. These are the kids who should be, um, making the this noodly music, noodling around, making beautiful templates and whatever, trying to become like an RA stamped, fucking DJ is just a fool's errand, man. I mean, yeah, this stuff is sort of over. RBM, the Red Bull Music Academy, I can't even believe they got 10 years out of that. What a fucking sinkhole of money that was. Jesus Christ. But it's the whole way we talk about this space is dumb as shit, and it's frustrating because it begat such great shit, really good DJs shifting the attitude and the broadening the horizons of their audiences, causing those kids to go home, make records, because I can't afford to go to the club, or I live 2.5 hours away from Blackpool, or I'm stuck in Cornwall at the Boogie Inn. Like Richard D. James, it's like got to make his rave in his bedroom. And a lot of these, so that, same thing with Boards of Canada, they had to do their own thing. And in Manchester it wasn't easy for sure for Autechre and bands to do their thing because it's such an oppressively dominated city. But anyway, it's like, Boiler Room is sort of like they think they're the modern twist on DJ kicks, but I don't see it. I think my buds are dying, so we're gonna crush it. And yeah, I mean, again, this is like, you know, this is just a fucking ramble, a kickoff point. Open up the Wikipedia, learn about this stuff, research it, listen to the music, and explore it. That's what, whatever. I just the idea of talking about this genre, you really have to have invested a bunch of time in it if you're going to do it. Because the gaps are, I mean, there's gaps as wide as my house just in this live stream. I'm just fucking talking off the top of my head based on CDs I've accumulated in records over the years. But I guess my point is, like, feel those kind of, get a feel for those three threads, the artists who, the artists who went to the big stakes, the major labels, the Orbs, the Orbitals, the LTJ to a lesser extent. Then the celebrity shit is sort of the 10-year echo of that, or 15. As the Aviciis of the world blow up and it becomes the superstar DJ making a fucking $2 million to spin bullshit and just be up there going like this. And Deadmau5, obviously, that heritage was there at the beginning, and it's a continuity of its own. Seriously, not, it's pure dance culture, but IDM ebbed and flowed throughout that in the beginning, and it really, I think the fracture was its own success, its preciousness, the arrival and the explosion of jungle D&B and other ideas. And yeah, I do feel like all of that really wrapped up for me in sort of LP5, Autechre to Chiastic Slide and Window Liquor. Those to me are like that's sort of like where this pivots to real bedroom minimalism, minimalist electronica, and then harsher, bigger D&B in terms of anything that's still relatively underground. So yeah, because Metalheads is like, I mean, they're banging big in 96, 97. They're taking that over. So yeah, anyway, um, cool. Yeah, breakcore. Yeah, I should have worn the genre shirt. The genre shirt is very lacking in electronica genres. Um, yeah. So yeah, hopefully I get my new drop shipment and I can have the hat in the next one, guys. But I thought this would be good for some '90s wave. Um, yeah, that's what we got. So I have to awkwardly stop it because I have to get the phone out of the thing and everything. So good that we got this done because I have had way too much shit going on in IRL to actually get this. So I didn't even talk about pole or plaid. Yeah, that's funny. It goes on forever. All right, so that's gonna be it, lads.